adjourned meeting of last Tuesday, January the 26th. Please join me in standing for the pledge of allegiance. We'll go ahead and do that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so what we're here for tonight, obviously, is to continue the discussion on the proposed development next to Governor's Hill. This is council's chance to talk amongst itself, to ask any questions we may have, to try to figure out which direction we want to go with this proposed development project. Obviously, we have a plan in front of us under a conditional use permit that we need to evaluate, determine if that's something we want to go with, if it's something we want to add additional conditions to, or if we want to turn it down and understand what the option is for the developer at that point in time. So I will kind of just open it up. If somebody wants to kind of get started, I think we've heard from the public. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the public. We've heard from the developer. So I think we all understand kind of what the issues are, and hopefully we can maybe try to find a way to reach some kind of resolution on this issue before us. So with that, I'll open it up to anybody that prefers to get started.
Okay, well, anyways, this Saturday, I was over in Governor's Hill. I kind of took a look to see, okay, is the flooding problem still there? Well, because of them building higher up on a hill, I could see why they would be afraid of that. Also, one of their biggest concerns is putting a road right in the middle of that cul-de-sac. I would like to explore if there's a possible way to have an alternative route as opposed to going through the cul-de-sac.
I have similar concerns at cul-de-sac. The folks that bought those houses in the cul-de-sac never planned for that to be a through route for those people. And I've got some real concerns. When you buy a house on a cul-de-sac, usually you're planning to have a nice quiet place for your children to be, and you're not planning for through traffic. And to say, well, they can develop it, well, I have some real heartburn about taking that to do that with. So I think that there ought to be a better route into there. And I'd like to know, is there any property in there that could be purchased at a reasonable price, and maybe even us assist them and do something with that, and still everybody come out with a win-win. I don't think running into that cul-de-sac is the win. I really don't. I think it's a bad idea. But that's my personal thing.
Well, I've got a lot to say, so sit back. Council, a couple of things before I get started. I called Wayne today because he had communication with J.P. Marsh regarding that cul-de-sac. You just passed up that letter to you. I think the biggest thing is it can be done. It has to be built to state standards, and then they look at site distance. That's the worst case scenario. Todd, before I get on my rant, can you answer a few questions? You had a conversation when we first came aware of all this at school buses.
Yes.
Can you tell us what our transportation school buses?
Yes, I contacted transportation because I was concerned if school buses couldn't get through there, then the fire truck couldn't get through there. But when I spoke to them, they could get their buses through there. They don't travel through there because the kids can walk up to a quarter mile or a half mile, and they said they do this throughout the county and the town, where there's some streets they don't drive up into.
So that basically, they wouldn't have gone through there if they could.
Right, right, at this point, they don't go through there because it's a distance the kids can walk instead of stopping at all the houses.
And last night, we got a thing in the mail, packet about our traffic count.
Yes.
Can you explain where that traffic count was?
That was down at the bottom of the hill, right before Coolbrook, catching the people leaving the neighborhood. So it was at the bottom of the hill, so people could be coming off of Industrial, they could be coming down the hill, or they'd be coming off of, turning off of Emerald Crest, there at the bottom of the hill.
So it's as much of the neighborhood, it's a through street as much as it is.
Yes, that's true.
And y'all saw those numbers?
So was it between Crest Ridge and?
Coolbrook. It was down almost to Coolbrook from what I understand, is where the
Okay.
person put it up. It was down on that
So it was
side of the road,
both-
catching people leaving the.
Both the roads coming, it was catching people coming down.
It only
both
catches
roads?
one direction, the westbound, the people leaving the neighborhood.
Going toward town and country.
Going towards town and country.
Okay.
And just for the record, I mean, which I thought, well, it must be a Daytona, but average daily was 725.
That is correct.
I misread it, I thought it was part of Crest Ridge.
Yeah, it was just, we didn't put it above because of we had it there for the speeding, because we get the complaints of speeding there too, so I actually had it up earlier. And then it showed the speeding, that 85% of people driving that road are complying with the speed limit.
Okay. Thank you. And after I saw that, I went to VDOT websites and looked at the average traffic counts for neighborhoods in the town. Don't know that it's relevant or not, but Oakwood is 3,600 a day, Whitfield 18, Link Road 4,700, College Street 750, Shady Knoll 600, Pinehurst 490. Just to give us an idea of trying to apples to apples. What I'm gonna say, I've been in this town since I was born, worked here and lived here and been involved in the community all my life. And for years before I got on council, citizens used to complain about the town council turned down developments. And that's one of the reasons I got here, because some people disagree with me, some won't. But we can't stop development. Now, I don't know what we'll do tonight on whether it'll be PRD or no deal or single family. But I want council to be aware that we have had a stagnant population 15 to 20 years, around 6,500, even with the reversion. Bart, what did we bring in on the reversion?
About 300.
About 300, and that's a pretty good area for that. The phase, well, we've addressed that. I understand the point and concern of new residents in Governor's Hill. Yet the neighborhood was built for density. As we well know, you can go up there, and I've sold houses up there before that new section of Governor's Hill went in. And was up there when we had the stormwater issues, and that's no fault of our own. That was an engineering problem. It was approved years ago. You know, I'm not an engineer, but I knew we needed some stormwater drop-in stand at the end. I tried to do what I could, and I ended up being the bad guy, somebody, for not doing what we should do, but I was concerned about it. There was a stub road on Crest Ridge. At the end of Crest Ridge, when I sold a couple of houses I had up there, knowing that one day something was going to go in there. Actually, my wife and I had it listed about 10 years ago. Nobody was showing any interest in it because there wasn't a lot of building going on. Regarding, there's been some concern about the traffic on Burks Hill. Well, council about 6 months ago, we've been studying it for some time, about doing sidewalk from the visitor center to Liberty Lake. And we put in a sidewalk, and then they talked about it was going to go up the right side going out towards Manila. And my concern was, and the whole council's concern was, put a crosswalk up there, near the convenience store over to Liberty Lake. So we come to the conclusion, we put a rest island there and cut that road down to 2 lanes with a middle lane for turning. So basically one way in, one way out. So if you did come out of something, you wouldn't be crossing 3 lanes of traffic. You'd be just 1 lane in, 1 lane out. It's called traffic calming. Because you know, if you've been up there, they do speed down through that, and Todd stays busy with it. So that was a concern about the traffic and industrial. Yes, it'll be more traffic coming out, but I don't think it'll be as hazardous as it is right now. Our comp plan talks about, in section 11.9, consistent planning theme for the town in the near term has the need for greater residential population to attract investors and opportunities. The data, the census of 2018, the town population was 6547, which again, as I mentioned, it remains stagnant. 2000 was 6299, 2010 was 6222. So we're not growing at all. The median age of folks in town is 38.1 years. Median household income, which is really one of the things since I've been on council is to try to get up, and I'll get into that a little bit, is $44,270. Median property values is $56,800. Home ownership in town is 49%. We have 3,230 houses, half of those are rentals. The median home built was 1966. Median apartments built was 1982, and I have a sneaky suspicion that's when they put in those subsidized housing. I was here, but wasn't involved in politics at that time, or development. We've always been considered a bedroom community with our location between Roanoke and Lynchburg. And most commute 22.6 miles to their jobs. The big thing on the development we're discussing is the price range, price point will be around $220,000. It's going to take folks that make more than $44,270 a year to buy those homes. What does that do? That increases our disposable income. People that have money in their pocket to shop and spend here in town. It benefits our tax base, and again, higher income residents, therefore more disposable income, higher owner-occupied home averages. The R1 development, by right, there's no conditions applied except for setbacks, because we have to put sidewalks in and the utilities. Lots will be sold. The developer could just sell the lots to whoever and whatever as contractors. There's no control on the design of the homes. But my big concern is the one way in and one way out. I don't have any idea how long it would take to put 180 single family. You can tell us at some point. Because I'm in real estate, so I had to look when somebody said they needed a realtor to tell them what was going on. For the year, last year, 22 residents have been sold in Governor's Hill. Currently, there's 6 still on the market. Just about all of them sold for the listing price. I haven't made my decision right yet until we have a discussion whether we need to do the PRD or the single family. But with the PRD, we do have some control as to what they look like, what the amenities are going to be, and things like that. If we do, and I'll give this is a question that Mr. White can answer later on. If we did single family, does fire code require a second exit anyway to get a fire truck in there? My other concern is somebody sent me an email that lives up on Emerald View, I think the one on top of the hill. Well, I don't have any problem with single family, just make sure they're at the bottom of the hill, they don't come in up here. Well, that's good neighbors. We need to look out for each other up there, but that's going to be a lot of traffic that we do single family on Crest Ridge. And with that, I'll shut up.
Well, this discussion's been going on for a while. We've been throwing it back and forth. You know, I'm very concerned about the citizens that lives over there, but also I want to see town grow and hopefully have more citizens to come out of town, more tax base and stuff like that. it's really, either way we go, or what direction we really go in, we're gonna either be wrong or we're gonna be right. And, the citizens is what comes first, I think. But like I said, I'm tossed between either way, or trying to make sense in where the bill was talking about going in and out and stuff like that, plus protecting the citizens over in that area right there. We want to grow and we want to move forward in this future of this town. But I mean, I don't know if it would be any kind of thing that we could look at, any kind of descendants and anything down the road. I don't know. To help maybe fix the problem so that we can protect the citizens and help the bill to move forward. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, as some of you may know, I was on the planning commission, and we do have to take into account that the planning commission denied it, so that is something we can't just disregard. Clearly, the traffic is the main issue. It's mainly what concerns me. I'd be very concerned living there too. I totally get it. Mr. Rush is right. We need development. We haven't had it, so this is a tough call. But I have to look at things as far as how the statute, the zoning regs are written. And it hasn't really been brought up much, but as far as control over the types of housing, it says the intent of the planned residential district, PRD, and I'll cut to the chase, says allowing for a balanced mix of housing types. We don't have that here. They just said, no, we're not doing it. Okay. So that doesn't fit the intent. Now, it's been argued, well, intent isn't something we have to stick to, but well, what's the point of having the PRD then? So even though I agree we technically do have some control over what these places would look like and so forth, and more control than we would if it was they were single-family homes. I don't see this as giving us a whole lot. I see a lot of patio homes, especially in the first 4 years, with certainly, I don't think, any guarantee that the rest of it's going to come. We've seen that happen here in Bedford before, where the project isn't finished. So in weighing out the development aspect of this, though, because I do have to look at that side, what's best for the town. It's best that we do have some growth. We need managed growth. We need good, smart growth in Bedford. If we deny the conditional use permit, and I have to take the builder at their word, they're going to put up, I think the exact phrase was, bare bones single-family homes. Now, I don't know how good that is for business, to advertise you're putting up bare bones homes. That's up to you. It's your business. And if there's only going to be one entrance and exit, I would think people buying a single-family home might want to take that into account before they buy the home. So I think the market's going to fix some of those problems. But if that's the ultimatum, do this or we're going to build single-family homes, we're still going to have growth. I think it was 130 to 150 homes. I don't know, maybe it was 180. So as a town, we would still gain. It sounds like the residents over there are fully aware that if we say no to the conditional use permit, that you're still looking at a lot of building going over there, and what I'm hearing is, you're good with it. I haven't heard anybody come up here in support of the conditional use permit from living over there. There might be people who just haven't come, but from what I heard is an overwhelming and resounding no, and that you're all fully aware that this doesn't mean it's going to stay timbered, that something's going there. And if you're good with it, I'm good with it. That's all I have.
All eyes on me. You know, it's kind of like I said last Tuesday. I'm fully aware of what we're up against here. And I certainly didn't mean that I was for this or against this. What I see behind my house on the Oakwood Street, the Oakwood Villas, was well planned, well laid out, and the developer did have town hall meetings and explain to the community or people interested what was going on there, what he was going to build, and the intent. And yes, it was marketed as more of a retirement type thing. So there was a big interest, and I thought, for me, that was the best thing to go back there. This is different. This is a lot, and I think roughly it's like 125 units going in the Oakwood Villas on 17 acres of land. This is entirely different. My concern is the people who spoke last Tuesday. the entrance. It's a lot of traffic. I would be more comfortable if we had an alternative route somewhere. Now, I don't know if we'll get to that or if that's a possibility, but, and I have been up to Governor's Hill. I've looked through there, and that cul-de-sac there, yeah, that's tight. I would not want traffic going in and out of that one cul-de-sac up there. And after the people showed me the pictures, I mean, that's, to me, a borderline nightmare. I'll just tell it like it is. We do need growth here. I certainly want to see growth. But we've got to really decide what the best option is here. And of course, it'll be done in, if this is what is decided, it will be done in phases. So we could be looking 10 or 12 years down the road and it still almost be complete or not complete. So we don't really know. I know Oakwood Villas has taken probably 10 years or more to really get up and going. So it does take a while. But still, my concern is if we could have another entrance on the lower side, I think that would ease a lot of concerns, problems. And we still need to talk about setbacks, things that, there's still a lot of tweaking to be done here, but with that said, Mayor, I'll be quiet and hopefully we can get some discussion going on some of this.
All right, thank you. I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page. I mean, we've all, I've been out there, I've talked to a good many of the neighbors, I've read every one of your emails. You know, I've talked to the developers. I understand the issues. Like Councilman Rush said, I mean, when I ran, I said, you know, expanding our tax base is one of the most important things we can do in this community. I mean, we've got a lot of plans to do a lot of things, and we can't do that if we don't get some growth. What kind of growth do we want? You know, how do we want it to look? The opportunity with this conditional use permit is we can drive that discussion. We can work with the developer, hopefully, and put some conditions and make the subdivision look like we kind of want it to look, you know, and do the best we can for you all. The other option, as been mentioned, is, you know, they can go in there and we give up control, and they can, you know, build their single-family homes. It can look like they want it to look, and you're going to have a traffic issue whichever way we go. I mean, we've gotten the numbers. I mean, you take 230 times 6, or you take 150 times 10. I mean, the number's the same, you know. Yes, I would love to see another road in from a separate access. And I'm willing to talk about that if the developer's willing to talk about that, if we can find a way to, make that work. I don't know if they are. I mean, I know they, they have their business model, and they're going to go, whichever way they want to go. But I'd throw that out there that, we would be willing to maybe consider trying to help, and I don't know what that would look like. That would be a lot more detail, a lot more negotiation. But I think that could potentially be a win-win for everybody. The cul-de-sac, I think that's going to be very difficult. I mean, I worry about the traffic coming in there. I don't know if there's another way you can configure the street system where, I mentioned one time where it's, a one-way street in that particular, I don't know if there's other options, but I think that's one of the biggest issues that we've got to kind of figure out. The other one is obviously the buffer between the existing project and the new project. I mean, we have a chance to set some setbacks to, determine what that buffer looks like. if we go ahead with the conditional use process. If we don't, I mean, the regulations are gonna tell us what they are, and we'll all have to live with that. So, I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, people are gonna be affected. We all understand that. So we just gotta keep, discussing it here tonight and see where we wanna go. And, kind of open it up if we wanna, Jamie, I don't know if you got any kind of thoughts that you.
I want to point out a couple of things here. Obviously, I want to address the bare bones comment. When I'm saying bare bones, I don't mean that the homes are going to be bare bones. What I'm saying is infrastructure of what's going to be put in there is going to be bare bones. So it'll be roads, curbs, sidewalks. There aren't going to be any community parks or any other types of community plans to go in. Building that secondary access road is cost to get us to the cul-de-sac. Now, obviously, the cul-de-sac tie-in was not our original option. We were going to have that as emergency access only to meet fire marshal requirements. That was discussions and feedback of having everything come down on Crest Ridge into one point of access. We thought, okay, we could split the traffic and split it between two different access points, which would alleviate some of the concerns with the traffic impacts on one localized entrance. Now,
So Jimmy, so you would, either way you go, that would still be an emergency access?
well, obviously, our preference would not to build that road connecting to the cul-de-sac. Right? That would be our preference. We do need to have, and to address the fire marshal's requirements, we don't have to have a second full access point. We have to have a secondary access for emergency vehicles. So anytime you have anything greater than 30 homes on a road, you have to have a secondary route to get traffic. That can be emergency access only. So that would mean it would be a gravel road or with, shrubberies or gates or something like that, fire trucks or the ambulance, if something's blocking the access road, they can come up there, clip the gate or whatever and get in there. That will meet the fire marshal's requirements for secondary access. But normal traffic would be pinned down in one location. So when we are looking at 1,500 cars, obviously the road is, technically, if we were building that road today, as I said before, that's how wide it would need to be. It can handle that. Whether or not people are parking on the side of the road, if that's the best, option, and how traffic flows through there and meander through, I understand that as well. But, that wasn't our original. We were just going to do the emergency access at the cul-de-sac primary access. We just thought it was a better option after we received that feedback to kind of split that between the two. Now, obviously, when we get into the development of plans, that's the property owner. He owns that piece already at the cul-de-sac. He did not build 2 units to have a secondary access point through there. Originally, he was going to, he was going to only lose 1 unit, because with emergency access, we don't have to have that 50-foot right-of-way requirement, so he can have it, within that 30-foot wide lot. Now, it's a thing to where, since he has that ability, he still might choose to do an access at that point, because then all we're going to meet if we go by right is meet development standards that are set forth in the code. So we could change the mind and move it to the cul-de-sac, and that might be the only access point, because that would be okay as well, if we were just meeting by right development standards, because he owns that as a tie-in. We just think that the best option is to be able to do things in the community, other things to where we were guaranteeing having those 2 points by doing a conditional use permit, and we were going to do that. Obviously, the buffer requirements, we understand, we looked back up through and, those yards only have a 10-foot rear yard. That was part of the conditional use permit that was for Governor's Hill in the first place, to even have that. And that's not something you could do in a normal situation, have a 10-foot rear yard. That was something that was passed and was allowed to happen. We're trying to provide some additional buffer, but if we have to go by right, obviously, in order to get the unit count to what it needs to be, it's probably going to be clear cut to the property line. There will be no buffer. at all back there. It'll be clear cut to the property line so that we can maximize the build for future development of single-family detached homes. You know, we did a little extra in looking into some other alternate route. Obviously, looking to get back up to Burks Hill another route, you're looking at somewhere between about, 3/4 to a mile of additional road that you can't develop on, because you're looking at just buying a right-of-way to tie us in somewhere. And whenever you build a road, it costs. I mean, it's $1 million a mile. I mean, that's what it's going to cost you to build something like that. We looked at an opportunity to go kind of back behind the cul-de-sac and come off the top of the hill to get back over into industrial. And we looked at what that would be. However, there's 60 foot of grade relief when you come from that point near back behind the cul-de-sac to get down to where the creek is to get back up into industrial. Now, it's only 725 feet of road, so it's not that long that you'd have to go. However, you can't build a road greater than 10% grade. So we're 225 feet away from the creek, so we would have a 40-foot fill over top of that existing creek, which the cost of bringing that much fill material to build that road, I mean, it would cost you $500,000 just to fill the area in. We're not talking about, putting the asphalt and curb and gutters and things of that nature as well. Obviously, if there was some way, and if it was, flat terrain and we had a general terrain that we can build close to grade, and you could build something that was feasible. It's just where we're at there. I mean, it's that 35% grade coming off the backside of that hill. You just can't, not easily build to get access over to industrial either. That's why we felt, having the cul-de-sac tie-in that was just going to be emergency access, it would be at least a benefit to split that traffic. But that doesn't, if we go by right, we probably won't be able to afford to do that.
Well, I'll say that I found peace back when this thing first started, and you're right, J.D. It's a hike through there, and then you're going to have to come across the bridge, and it was $1 million plus just to do that.
Right.
And that was going to bring it up on the upper end of Burks Hill.
Right.
And you got a business model that you got.
Right, I mean, obviously you got to look at everything costs. Obviously, building a road that you can have, homes and stuff like that on, then that funds the road. That's what any subdivision does. So if it's just access road, I mean, obviously if the town wants to build us a road to tie into, we'd be happy to tie into something. But, any development that comes in there will not be able to afford, at least a residential development, will not be able to afford to build a mile of road or build a steep fill zone over top of a creek, which we don't even know, because you're looking at permitting requirements for stream disturbance. We don't even know if we can get it in. We might be disturbing greater than what's allowed without having to go to mitigation requirements with the Army Corps of Engineers. So, we kind of did a rough number. Just the short road might be $750,000 just to get 700 feet of road in, just because it's such a fill to get that done. It's just, this piece of property is really kind of locked. Now, obviously, once we get over into Governor's Hill, I mean, you can go industrial, you can head back out to Harmony. You have other ways to get, depending on how people work or where they work, there's alternate routes in and out. So I think we're not pinning a lot of new growth onto one access at any point. There's obviously other alternative routes depending on where people work or where they're choosing to visit. So.
If you were to build single-family homes over there, though, just purely from a marketing standpoint, if someone's going in there to buy a home, they're going to realize you've got one way in and one way out.
Yeah, and that's typically not a deterrence for new home builds. When people come and build and look for a home, I've done a number of developments where this is the issue. I've got developments in the county of Bedford where the fire marshal has the option to follow the International Fire Code. So that's up to the fire marshal. Now, the county's fire marshal, we've got developments up in the county off of Cottontown Road that have, a couple of hundred of homes. There is no emergency secondary access. It is just one access road altogether. So, it's not a deterrence for sales because these lots sell just as quick as any other. And keeping it, if we do single family, what we are building at that point is a road and lots to sell. the developer may build some of those homes, but he will probably market lots for other builders to sell. So it could be any number of developers in and out at that point, not just this one home builder.
Have you done any figuring on how many houses? Like I said, we've kind of heard some different numbers.
Yeah, well, we haven't done a single-family layout, because obviously that's not the option. We did some frontage length and requirements that we need to meet, and we're targeting around 130 to 135 single-family homes. And that's where, it depends on how we can network the roads and still meet the minimum requirements for lot sizes and road frontages. So we haven't worked out those details. We're just kind of estimating, we kind of put it like between 130 and 150. And that's why we're saying if we build that number of units, you're still going to have the same amount of traffic as a multifamily development. So we feel that this is a secondary access point is a good option, and I think secondary access and the buffer for those existing homes that have a 10-foot rear yard, I think those two things, for me, are huge items that help give some relief to the adjoining neighborhood. And obviously, we're looking at other items like community parks and things like that kind of help out the neighborhood as well. But if I'm looking as that community that's out there existing, having a buffer there and having at least two roads tying in so everything isn't piling in on one, those are huge items in my mind to move forward with.
You probably don't know, Kevin would probably have to be the one to answer that. I know houses on the market today are sold in 2 or 3 days, because that's true everywhere.
Right.
Because with the new, I won't get political, but I think things will slow down. But do you have an idea on the price point on a single family?
A single family? I really don't. You're probably still looking at small homes, because we're going to make lots as small as possible to get the counts as high as possible. You're probably still looking at between probably about 225 and 250 for single-family homes, just because they're going to be smaller in size. The patio homes, the developer's selling them before he can finish building them. That just tends to be, and that's whether it's here in Amherst County, City of Lynchburg, Campbell County, there's been a huge market for that type of single-family living with 16 to 1,800 square feet on one level with low maintenance. It's been very attractive, and that's why the developer is seeing this as the option that people want, and we're trying to provide a product that people are wanting and what they're buying right now.
Do you have any other developments that you're talking about in, say, Amherst, Lynchburg, where there's no on-street parking? Because this one said no on-street parking, and I just think in reality, that's not going to fly.
Well, we do a lot of, there's a lot of single-family neighborhoods. Now, a lot of the stuff we do in counties and things of that nature are not curb and gutter streets. Obviously, you're looking at shoulders and ditches and things like that, but they don't lend themselves to parking on the side of the road. And there's no restriction to that, but that's not what you see on a day-to-day basis. Unless it's somebody stopping by, like, cutting lawns and they want to park their trailer there, or things of that nature, but not, overnight parking. There's developments that I've done over in a lot of single-family detached stuff, that they don't park on the road, but.
As far as something enforceable, because it's my understanding we'd have to put the signs up and we'd have to enforce it.
Well, obviously enforcement always comes to, the locality to enforce things. Posting of signs, I would think, would be something that the developer would be posting, no parking signage that would go out there. Obviously, and that's something that's also listed in the restriction and covenants of a neighborhood of what you can and cannot do. But obviously, even a homeowners association is not going to be going out there and slapping tickets on cars for parking in the street when not supposed to. I think what we're providing with the types of homes, and obviously I'm not saying that everybody that lives out there would only have 2 or 3 cars max, but on a whole, I think you will see, with 2 cars being able to park in the driveways and a garage, that would satisfy the majority of people there. And that's something that people know when they buy the house, this is your parking and this is what you have. Same thing when I used to live, in the Fort Hill area in the city, and we had very little parking, and that was a choice we made in a very small yard, and what yard was there was awful, but it worked for us, and we bought, so.
And you had on-street parking.
What's that?
And you had on-street parking.
We had on-street parking, yeah.
Another thing, open space. So obviously in the plan we got right now, you've got 25%, I think, or 29%, I believe it was.
Right.
Open space. Now that calculation, was that based on the whole acreage? It wasn't, were you still meeting the 20% open space kind of requirement by phase?
By phasing, I'd have to go back and break out the phasing part of that. Obviously, you know, we were targeting like the community park to be kind of in the middle of this. Obviously, you know, we just think that's about the point to where the use becomes available to make most sense. The timing of that, I think, for certain types of things. And obviously, we haven't broke down all the details of what other pocket parks, you know, maybe some areas that would also serve as community open space as well. We haven't gotten those details. Obviously, we will meet those requirements in the review phase. But that may mean that, you know, instead of, you know, between phases 2 and 3 that we build a park, that it's, you know, a little earlier when we need to get to there. But obviously, as a whole, we're meeting it, but we haven't broke down, you know, each phasing for open space now.
But you'd be open to meeting, or.
Sure,
would be
yeah, you're right,
open to
yeah,
meeting that
absolutely.
requirement of at least having that much in each phase.
That's right.
Okay.
Single family, and I'm getting off, because we have to look at both sides of it, Jamie. We're talking a single family, much like what's on the bottom road. I'll get them confused.
Crest Ridge, no, that's correct.
Is that the type of single family y'all?
I would assume that's small lots, and very tight space, and obviously, you know, I think there were some setback restrictions that happened because it's part of CUP. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing a CUP with alternative setback requirements. We would just meet the minimum requirements that are set forth in R1. So we would be meeting R1 requirements.
Right, and those are like, I believe, 35.
30 feet, 50 feet.
35 in the front, 50,
Right, yeah.
10 in the side, and 50 in the back, something like that. I believe. But the open space requirement in the R1 is.
No, it'd be by right R1,
Yeah.
is what it would be. And every bit of space, there wouldn't be any common area at all. It would be, whatever is there would be lot lines extended to the existing boundary. It would.
Would you still require an HOA in a?
Well, you're going to have a HOA on any development nowadays. You can't get away from that because you have long-term maintenance for stormwater management facilities. So any development that's built now, you got to have an HOA. There's no way you can get around it.
Okay, I know it would be ideal to have 2 ways in and out of your development. However, would you be open to just having 1 way and not using a cul-de-sac? Would you be open to that?
You know, that would be our preference. I mean, we would more than happy have one access point on the Crest Ridge. Obviously, we have to have secondary emergency access only, which, you know, we could, you know, block it off with low-lying shrubs, and that's what fire marshals will let us do in other localities, and we'll have to work with the local fire marshal. There has to be a secondary emergency access, but it wouldn't be something that would be used. And in all reality, I can't recall one ever being used, but they're there for that access in case something happens. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to reduce it all back down to one access point as was in our original scenario.
Which is what it would be if it was single family.
Yeah, right. That's right.
So you're comparing apples to apples there, there's still
Right.
probably gonna be less traffic.
Right, I mean, it ends up, the traffic numbers are fairly close, either way we go. If we do by right, then it's all going to be funneled into Crest Ridge. And we're happy to do that with multifamily as well, it'd be about the same amount of traffic. You know, I think the feedback we got was at least having some other alternate access point, and that other alternate access point that we could think of coming up with is just making the emergency access a full access to at least split the traffic.
All right, if y'all did single family and you built some, much like, I can't think of the guy that built some of those on Crest Ridge later on. Would you put, if you sold a lot to me as I was a contractor to build, would there be standards in it? Or would it just be something?
There could be. And a lot of times, the developers will put covenants and restrictions on, the type of finishes and stuff like that on homes and things like that. We don't have to. But typically, for a look and feel of a certain type of neighborhood, and usually those restrictions and covenants are in home neighborhoods that your prices tend to be a little higher. So, if people want to have, certain types of siding, or they don't want siding and they want all the homes to be brick in those neighborhoods, or things of that nature. Typically, on subdivisions, when you're looking at 300,000 and under, there aren't a lot other than addressing, some other maybe maintenance issues, additional accessory structures and things of that nature, what you can and cannot have, fencing, things like that, whether or not you can have fencing and, what type it has to be. We don't have to have those, but obviously the developer can choose to do that if he.
Well, I wouldn't think it'd go hog wild. The price point for this town is about what you're asking. Not much right now. The 200,000. But you could say no, whatever.
Right. I mean, they could leave no covenants and restrictions at all, or they can say, we would prefer to have this type of home built with these types of finishes and things of that nature, minimum square footage requirements and things like that. But those are all optionals.
I knew that, but I want you to answer.
Right.
Any other questions for Mr. White right now? All right.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that regardless how we vote, that not only is it going to be developed, but there's also going to be that emergency access road as well as the other way to get in and out?
Yes. That would be, either way we go, at a minimum, there will be a full tie-in to Crest Ridge and at least emergency access to the cul-de-sac.
And one more thing, is there going to be a performance bond as well as a letter of credit for just in case the developer doesn't finish?
They will post all required bonds set forth by either, I guess it'll be the town and the water.
County and the water authority.
Yeah. ENS stormwater bonds will have to be posted as well.
All right, has anybody got any thoughts on?
Jamie, the number you had on the coming off industrial, what was that? Was that $1 million for that? Because of the field?
$750,000.
$750,000.
It's about $500,000 just for the fill material to be brought in for that, and that's using on-site fill.
And that's just
It-
buying, that's
it's
just
a
building
ba-
road, right? That's not buying land, that's just building
That's just
road construction.
road construction. That doesn't include anything as far as purchasing of land or anything like that. It is 50,000+ cubic yards of fill material. That doesn't even include the stormwater pipe that would have to go under that as well. We didn't even look at that once we saw how much fill material it would take. We just can't come down the hill fast enough because it is so steep. I mean, it's still 40 feet of fill.
And there's still a lot of other issues there if you did buy it. I do know that.
And keep it in mind, when we are looking at 40 foot of fill, we're going to get close to an impact area to where the fill slopes will stretch out about 300 feet. So it wouldn't be a 50-foot wide right-of-way that would need to be gotten there. You're looking at additional lands for fill slopes and things of that nature. Not saying that couldn't be built, it's just the feasibility of building something like that. The cost is astronomical. You don't, unless it's a state or federal highway project, you don't see fills 40 feet over top of creeks just because of how much it costs to get that.
And that would have to be built state standards too.
Right, that's right.
Jim, you had mentioned Robbers, but I think that's way over our head.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I mean, it sounds like the cost there is kind of, makes that prohibitive. I mean, unless, does anybody have any thoughts on So at that point, we're kind of almost back down to, like I said, trying to figure out, which project we're comfortable with, I think, are we comfortable?
I don't think there's gonna be another road access in there. I know we
No.
all want it, and we wish we would want it.
I think we beat that horse.
It's not happening.
Well, I think the question will come up, so we've answered that question.
Yeah, I think we've answered that question. So now, kind of, what do you feel about the idea of, the traffic's, like I said, the traffic's gonna be roughly the same at one road regardless. Myself, I still like the fact we might have some control.
I said, it sounds nice, but nice, a community park, that's nice. We're talking the first 2.5 phases in 4 to 6 years, and that's just half of it, and there's no parking in those first 2.5 phases. It's several patio homes, and a setback on here of 10 feet. Nothing else. I don't see anything else on there in the first 2 phases. The 0.5 is the community park, which is nice, but the vast majority, if not all of the residents over there seem to be more than content with this being a single-family development, single-family home development, and if they're good with it, I'm good with it. I still see the town benefiting from it.
Oh, I do too. I think we're gonna.
So we're still getting growth and development. I just don't know if it sounds very paternal of me to say, well, you don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what you're doing, so we're gonna, the conditional use permit in the patio homes is better for you, even though you don't think so. I'm gonna defer to the residents on that one. They're good with single-family homes. And we're not talking about 3 or 4 of them.
I think we do have an obligation to the residents of Governor's Hill, also to the developer now. I'm echoing a lot that's already been said. But I think what we heard again last Tuesday was the entrances in and out. Yes, the traffic flow may be the same, but if we could have just gotten another outlet there, which I know we can't now, which I understand it's the grade and all that. I've seen the land that we had considered there. But once again, I still, like Councilman Johansson said, I do have some heartburn with this. And it's not one of those things that I have easily made a decision on. And hearing the residents that live over there say what they did, I just think, if they're content with their subdivision, then certainly we're going to win. We'll have the development over there and some income, taxes and so forth.
Well, it goes back to when they first developed it, they could have, would have, should have, I don't know. I think we would have had a little more forethought of what we're doing now than they did years ago. I think it was probably a new project. The last project, they probably did that was Town and Country. So, and I'm just going, that's history, we can't change it.
And you're right, Steve, that's probably our biggest problem, in that these things don't come around but once every, 15, 20 years, if that. So it's not like we have a lot of experience. And my only experience was with Oakwood Villas, but that was totally different than this. And I was on council then at the time. But once again, this is entirely different animal.
But I think the reason I said it was finger pointing, but that's history, there's nothing we can do about it with the ENS and what have you, because that's a county problem. The one thing that I would say, if we do want entrances, we won't have to look at the parking situation on Crest Ridge. I don't think we will continue to have parking on both sides of the road. That's a disaster way with that, with kids and what have you. And I understand those problems, because I've got some people I know over there, and they say it's problems. But these are other issues that will come up.
decision tonight, we wanted to, I mean,
Oh.
or do we want to?
Something I'm kind of curious about, is there any way to have a combination of single-family homes and townhomes, or is it one or the other?
They either are looking at doing the patio homes only or doing single family homes.
And they gotta be careful how to tell a developer how to spend his money, because he is in a business to make money. And I don't think there's that big a margin on these type of things when you start doing infrastructure.
They're in the business to sell
Yeah.
homes. They're not building stuff that's not for sale, so that's their job.
I think, we can keep kicking the can down the road.
Well, does anybody want to make a motion of any type, or, I mean, that's,
So I have a question. Does the, they is due this week to sign to move forward with this?
The option.
The, contract, or whatever, is that,
Up to the sale contract?
Yes.
I'm not privy to that conversation. I'm not sure when that closing and stuff was happening or anything like that. They were trying to make.
I didn't know, I just figured I would ask you and see if it was to be settled this week to move forward with it, or we might have another week to play with this.
And I guess, at least in the conversations I've had with the developer, and obviously, another access point. I think if we had that, we would have gotten an approval last week, and we wouldn't even be having this discussion here today. I think we've explored that, that the routes that we have, there are no other ways to get in and out. I mean, obviously, they're anxious for me to get started on something, one way or the other. And I just want to emphasize, typically when you go into these meetings like this, it's, you get a denial, the developer goes finds another piece of property. I think the position that they are with the price of the land, they want to build on that piece of property, and that's coming, and it's not going to be delayed down the road and try to wait for something later. I don't think, from my discussions, that there are any other, unless the town could see any other ways to work together to get a secondary access. Obviously, I'd had some discussions with them about working on, potentially changing the phasing lines that would help, if the town wants to help explore options with them, to where we can maybe try to find another access route that's a feasible point, to where we're not, building up on the top end of time into the cul-de-sac. We can maybe change our phasing lines to kind of help give us some time to try to find that route. But they just can't sit on projects waiting. They need to move forward one way or the other.
And
And I just, and I understand that there's, people, especially if you're in the cul-de-sac, you're going to be happy with the decision not to have a permanent tie-in to the cul-de-sac.
Yes, sir.
If you live down on Crest Ridge, you may not want all that traffic coming down. And if you lived on, what's on Emerald Crest coming down the hill, you want a buffer. I mean, because your yards are 10 foot wide. So obviously there's people in the neighborhood that probably would like an assortment of different things. I'm not exactly sure that all of them would be fine with a single family development. Maybe they are. But I think people on Emerald Crest coming down the hill with their tiny yards, they might like with some assurances that there's at least some buffer, between us and this development. But, that if we have to go by right, we have to maximize what we have there, and it won't be an option.
Mr. Wright, I had last week mentioned as a possible condition, and I think the developer answered directly, if we can do phase 1 and 2 and then condition the continuation of the project on additional access. And he just said no.
Well, I think what the developer's position was that it wouldn't be a thing to where half the development would be approvable until we can find something later on. It would be staggering our development in phases in a way that wouldn't do the tie-in to the cul-de-sac to allow for some additional investigations and things of that nature to happen over the next, 6 months, 12 months, or things of that nature. But obviously, what the idea is that if we cannot find that extra route to get on in, he would need to, to build out his project. In essence, what I'm saying is that we would phase it to give us more time to find an alternate route, but if we couldn't find an alternate route, and we're happy to work with the town to try to find that position, placement to get something, but obviously, what's there now with what's available, there's just no way to tie into it. And they need to move forward with the project as a whole, but they can phase it in a way that would give us some time to make that decision. Because obviously, our first phase is to do the loop connection, is what we plan, is do the loop connection to get us from the cul-de-sac, all the way back up to Crest Ridge, so we can early on get that split of traffic, so there would never be a bombardment on one road.
And I'll tell you, my experience on the one that I found was, they need it, they're gonna pay the price.
Right.
And that's gonna be the attitude of anybody else that's,
Right.
I don't know that I would commit to something like that.
Right.
That's an unknown, and they got you.
I guess the position from what my discussions are with the developer, obviously they would like to have had a decision last week, and we postponed it this week. I think their position was we need to move forward one way or the other.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward with the plan for the BRD.
So you're moving to approve the request, the application as a conditional approval?
Vote it up or down.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Can you call the roll?
Roll call. Mr. Haley?
No.
Mr. Hartwick?
Aye.
Mr. Johannesson?
No.
Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Mr. Schoen?
No.
Mr. Stanley?
No.
Mayor Black?
No.
Motion fails. 5 nays, 2 ayes.
Make a motion. Make a motion that, do single family.
Well, we don't need.
We don't need that.
That's by right.
We don't need
By
that.
right.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. That's by right.
We're done.
We're done.
So,
Meeting adjourned. They needed.